We're about to talk about a bunch of kitchen design trends that are about to go out of style. They may be popular on Pinterest and in Google, and maybe ChatGPT's recommending them to you, but hold off because a lot of these are probably going to go out of style real quick. At least according to Insider.com, which is the article that I'm reacting today live, and it's called Interior Design Experts Share 12 Kitchen Trends They Think You'll Regret in a Few Years. What do they know about you, right? I'm gonna give you my feedback on all of this, and just as a disclaimer, if you have some of these already implemented in your kitchen, don't worry about it. If you like it, that's all that matters, okay? Deep breath. First one is pattern floors. They make a bold statement, but may quickly go out of style. Whenever I see things like bold patterns on floors or even backsplashes, which I'm one to talk because I just put in a really bold backsplash, my impulse is always, you better like it if you're installing it, because backsplashes, and more importantly, floors, they're very expensive to replace. So if you do get sick of them, it's not as simple as putting a nice coat of paint on it and being done. That's the beauty of paint, right? It's just so easy. So I guess it depends on how bold you go, because if you have like a checkerboard pattern that has kind of that vintage aesthetic, but it's also extremely polarizing and very contrasty, so that becomes the center of your entire design. And if you're sick of that, then you're sick of the kitchen design as a whole. So yeah,
tread softly.
Concrete countertops may be aesthetically pleasing, but they're not practical. I've been saying this for a long time. I love concrete. I love it as a design element, as a material. But on the counter, I was always really concerned about the longevity of it, both in terms of it chipping, staining, absorbing moisture. There's just a lot to it that isn't conducive to a great countertop surface. Those more natural materials in general are always going to be a bit sketchy. Even marble, which seems like a nice, smooth surface, it can absorb oils and moisture and gunk into the veining and all that, which is why quartz became so popular, because it's more sanitary. Marble and definitely concrete are porous surfaces, so they will absorb those liquids, which is not what you want in a countertop, especially if you plan on using it for years and years to come. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of concrete floors for some reason, and concrete walls. I think those are kind of cool. Breakfast nooks. What's wrong with breakfast nooks? I like a breakfast nook because if you have the space for it, might as well use it. It's a designated sort of seating area, a little more of a casual vibe. I think it's fine, but I guess they're complaining of a more traditional looking breakfast nook with your sort of recessed paneling and the fabric on top, and the fabric will get dirty if you're not using the right fabric. Okay, use stain resistant fabrics, maybe adjust the design to complement the rest of your home, and then you're good. Don't hit on my nooks, okay? The double island trend. Yeah, I've been seeing this. And hey, kind of like the last one, if you have the space, why not? For me, personally, I've been more of a fan of one larger island or one like U-shaped island I've seen. Like having two separate islands is a little bit overkill, especially in this example they gave with two separate sinks. Maybe if you have a private chef, then it would work, but there is also the aspect of islands like this being permanently fixed to the floor. So if you had your one main island and then one sort of smaller floating island that had multiple purposes and you can kind of put it away or move it to the side, I think that's a better alternative. Gives you more flexibility as well. Don't mix too many metal finishes. I didn't know this was a thing, to be honest. Like here you have, it looks like brass handles on top and then kind of a chrome brushed nickel on the bottom. Unsure. And then you have like gold knobs on the stove. Yeah, so it depends on your aesthetic, just in general. Are you the type of person to mix metals on your rings? Then you can do it in the kitchen, I guess. But the one area where I would maybe differentiate the metallics would be on the faucet or something, like a fixture. One solitary accent piece, and then the handles could be something that's more uniform and consistent. That's fine, but having a ton of different ones, it just really makes a mess of things. I suppose in this example on the website, it's a very white kitchen, so there's not a whole lot sort of pulling your focus, but they have gone for a light gray on the bottom, so there is a two-tone aspect. You also have a somewhat intricate looking backsplash, even though it is white. So there's a lot going on, even in a white kitchen, which is something I never thought I would ever say. We're bashing black hardware. I'm a fan of black hardware, still, to this day, although I have been victim of the drawbacks of black hardware. If you don't get the right stuff, that black finish can come off. and it's just not going to stand the test of time. It's not going to last as long as you might want it to. I was able to fix it pretty easily. It was actually the bathtub plug that sort of sealed it off so you can fill the tub. It started to chip a little bit, but all I did was I just bought some, $10 can of Tremclad heat-resistant flat matte paint, and I sprayed it a few times, and it looked perfect. It actually looked better than when it started, which is interesting. But like anything, if you spend the money and get something that's a little more high quality, it will last longer. But I just find the matte finish in general, especially if it's just painted, it will show scratches, and it will show that wear and tear quicker. So if you don't want to change your fixtures every couple of years, maybe consider something else. The recommendation here is polished or brass nickel features. Basically the boring stuff, right? I'm just kidding. Oh, I love this one. All white kitchens are far from practical. I know. Preaching to the choir here, insider. This has been one of my biggest gripes with white kitchens. When everything is white, especially the cabinets and maybe the backsplash, it's just really hard to maintain. It's hard to keep clean. If you are a neat freak or you have professional help that can help you keep it clean, I don't mean like mental help, a cleaner, then the payoff is you got a pristine looking kitchen. Everyone that comes over will see how beautiful and clean your kitchen is. I often compare it to white sheets at a hotel. They're bright and white so you can see that there's nothing going on. There's no stains, there's no bugs crawling around. It's clean and pristine. But pictures like this, they look great in a photo. But if I were to go to this kitchen a year later of heavy use, I'm curious to how it'll actually look. I think it just establishes this really high standard of cleanliness that can be daunting, especially if you have kids and pets and guests and parties. Throw on an off-white or something. Just, something that can camouflage a little bit. I'm just kidding. Clean your kitchens, everyone. Open shelving concepts may be a bust in the long term. The open shelf concept is a bit love-hate for me because similar to the white kitchens, it's something that looks really good, but when you have it in your home, it becomes a bit of a burden. So even if you do a good job at keeping it neat and just having a few items, mainly for display purposes, but you could have a really beautiful spice rack that you also like to display, that could be good. Problem is, in that section, you're now limited to what you can store there because you don't want to stuff your open shelf. Maybe you want to put 2, 3, or 4 curated items that sort of live there. But now that whole section is essentially accounted for, which means that could have been some closed cabinets that you can put 2, 3, even 4 times the amount of stuff in. So that's the one thing that I would caution people with. It's not so much how it'll look like in person, because I think you can keep it looking nice and neat. It's more so the storage space that you're sacrificing because they're open. Complementary color schemes can quickly lose their zest. And they got some zesty citrus fruits there. So complementary colors or color blocking is essentially having opposing colors on the color wheel together to create really dynamic, punchy color schemes. And for the most part, I do agree that maybe you don't want something complementary in your kitchen that's permanent, because it will be very polarizing and charged, and it could get tiring over time. And typically, redoing your kitchen is one of the most expensive renovations you can do. It's not something that paint alone will fix, because you have to factor in your cabinets, your backsplash, your flooring, your countertops, all that come into play here. However, I think this example is pretty sweet, because you just have a blue tile backsplash and then some oranges. So you're having a complementary color scheme without actually committing to that color scheme. You just have some fruit that are probably going to get eaten in a couple days, and then poof, now you just have a blue kitchen. It's not complementary anymore. So that would be my recommendation. If you wanted to experiment with complementary colors and do some really funky stuff, maybe do something more temporary by having that second color be something that is not going to be there in a week. Or even a cookbook that you put on display with a really colorful cover or something. That could work as well, rather than thinking, oh, I want red top cabinets and green bottom ones. Probably not going to last. Lower cabinetry that's painted in light colors can reveal flaws. Well, guess what? Every white kitchen out there has white lower cabinets, so it seems like people are fine with it. I guess it's the same argument for lighter cabinets in general. Yeah, you got to keep them clean, and the lower cabinets specifically are maybe more likely to get dirty because they're at ground level. So anyone passing by, brushing up against them, kicking them, splashing stuff on them, it's more likely to be on the lower cabinets. So that could go into your thinking based on what colors you decide for your lower cabinets. Maybe go a bit darker than you were originally planning. Or maybe not. if you like cleaning. Now this one I hate. Too much green can play with your sight. How dare you, insider? How dare you? I like green, but I do get the idea that too much green can create a green color cast, which could make your food look a bit strange. The thing about green, though, is it comes in all different shades, all different tones and temperatures. You can have teal, you can have bright avocado greens that are more zesty. In this example, there's more of a yellowy green in the cabinets, which I think is a bit trickier to pull off. It's a little more vibrant, maybe more fun, but you could get sick of it faster. I tend to gravitate towards darker, more muted greens like forest greens and even deep dark teals and things of that nature. And even though green cabinets is a little more permanent than green walls, I tend to favor it because I think the example they give here is a little misleading because it shows green chairs and green cabinets, but then you have like these white walls. I prefer having green cabinets and green accents versus the walls, just for kitchens especially, because then it brings attention to the cabinets rather than just the plain walls. It's sort of the opposite of what I find attractive in a kitchen design. So while yes, maybe the green is a little overdone here, maybe it's a little more yellowy than I would like, it's not terrible. If anything, I would maybe switch out the chairs, maybe make the green a bit darker, and then we're good. Rustic pantry doors may not be the right fit for your kitchen. This kind of goes for a lot of things. People sometimes force certain aspects of their design that the room or the house doesn't really lend itself to. If you live in an older home, then these rustic elements are great. But if it's super modern and contemporary, sometimes it may look out of place. Although with pantries, I always kind of like having a little bit of fun with those pantry doors. So I feel like the pantry is the powder room of the kitchen. You could do some fun stuff there. And I know some of you love your white kitchens, and that's totally fine. I just don't think they're as timeless as you might think. And we talked about it over here in my design hot takes, including that one.